So, without further ado, John, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you very much, and I'm very busy.
Very
And,
busy.
and of course, with every developer, investor listening, and then we're all the same. We've all got great things happening, and we've got and we've all got ball aches that we'd rather not have to sort out. But it's all about unraveling problems, isn't it? Really.
100%. So, John, people might recognize you from the hit TV show Property Elevator. They might also be aware of some of your developments, but I'm going to take you right back to the start in terms of your career. Now, we actually
Yeah.
share something in common, which is that both our fathers are responsible for a career in a state agency. So, can you tell me and the audience a little bit about what that was like, how you got started with your dad doing a state agency, and yeah.
Well, I was very fortunate because my father was a greengrocer in Felixstowe, and he had two shops. He was a sort of entrepreneur-y, sort of middle, sort of Marks and Spencer's type family, really. I suppose you would describe us as. And then one day he decided that he would sell both shops, and he would buy an existing estate agency that wasn't doing very well. Did even worse when he bought it, but I mean, it wasn't doing very well. It was a lot one-man band, really. So he, at 60 years old, he decided he would like to have a change of occupation, as it were. So on the Friday, he sold his shops, and on the Monday, opened up as an estate agent. The problem is, everyone knew him in the town. It's only a small town, Felixstowe. They all knew him as a greengrocer, really. So that's a bit tricky when you go around valuing houses. But of course, as everyone knows, there's no qualifications to be an estate agent, which is handy because I haven't got any qualifications apart from I've got an MVQ3 in racehorse management. So I joined him. Well, I used to help out, holding the tape in those days in my holidays and stuff like that, measuring up houses. And of course, you're sitting around the dinner table. I'm same with you, Chris. I'm sure, it rubs off on you. And also, I used to cycle round, and if I saw a for sale board, I'd get 50 pence off him because he was generous. And I'd get 50 pence to tell him where it is, and he would try and knock on the door and try and get it for sale, which is exactly what we still do now in our estate agencies we own in Norfolk. Same thing, same principle, door knocking.
So you do canvassing? Do you still
find that work? Hard. I mean, Fine and Country, we're like a swan above the water. We're very proper and very professional, and dealing with lovely homes. Under the water, we are peddling like what. Yeah. To get the deals, get them on at the right money. That's the most important thing. You can have 150 houses on the market, but it's no damn good if they're all overpriced because you won't sell any. You know that, Chris. I know that. And actually, estate agency is a great apprenticeship for property investing and developing. And everyone I know, all my sort of friends my age, all who are property guys and girls, all started in agency. That's the way you started. None of us went to university. None of us had any real qualifications, but drive and ambition. There's a new breed. I accept that completely, and it's very exciting. They're intelligent. They're doing well in other businesses, and many people on this webinar this morning are like that. I'm sure will identify with that, and they are, aspirational. They've made some money in other businesses and want to get into property, and that's great. That's great, and they do the education route, which is good. You need to be careful who you go to and who you talk to, but in principle, we all need a bit of support and help, and that's not a bad thing. So it was really struggling. I went full-time at 17. My father being in hospital, came out of hospital, wasn't very well. Mrs. Leader, who was our secretary, used to give me spelling lessons in the mornings because she couldn't believe how bad my spelling was. Anyway, and he went back in hospital. I was running the business at 17 years, 4 months. Hadn't got a clue what I was really doing by then, but we did property management, we did insurance. Can you believe that? They let me write cover notes out for cars. I mean, what were they thinking? Lee's Permanent Building Society. So we had a building agency where we're handing money out. I didn't even take my Maths O level. Handing money out and making it all add up. And then, my God, what a problem! Property management and obviously trying to sell houses as well. So really good grounding. And because we were struggling and losing money, that's the best way to learn, I'm afraid. I know it's tough love, but anyway, he came out of hospital. We argued. I wanted to modernise it. He didn't really want to. Anyway, long story. My mother was brilliant. A long story. I bought my first 2 properties on my 18th birthday off a property developer that we knew, who was at the end of it, a deal, and he had 2 left and wanted to do a deal. And then I bought the business of my father at 19 and changed the name, ran it till I was 24, sold it for not a huge amount of money by any means, because I went full-time property developing and investing. There you go.
There you go. I find it interesting that, you know, obviously when we talk about sort of economic downturns, and particularly in a estate agency, that's
Yes.
when the real talent in a estate agency rises.
Absolutely, Chris. Absolutely. Yeah.
And yeah, I think that the amount of estate agents, although it's quite a low barrier to entry at the moment, and there is talk about licensing coming in,
Yeah.
it's a fantastic way to cut your teeth in the industry and get a bird's
Brilliant
eye.
way. And I say to really young people, it doesn't suit older people probably, but younger people who want to get into property, and I'm very, you know, I always try and support and help 17, 18, 19-year-olds who contact me, and I say, well, look, if you can go and work on a Saturday for free in an estate agent's office, that's a great grounding. And even if they don't pay you or do the viewings, you know, whatever, because that's such a good grounding. Probably not quite as good as it used to be, because everything's much more corporate, you know, and there's less ducking and diving probably. But even so, it's still well worth doing. Well worth doing. And of course, you know what they say about estate agency: you're only 3 months away from going bankrupt. So so it costs us to run our estate 5 offices, 150,000 a month.
Wow. And
you know, we've got good staff, 43 staff. It's not for the faint-hearted. We're all going to Barcelona for Christmas this year, so we always go away every year, take all the staff away. We go on a Saturday morning, come back on a Sunday night, so not much gets sold on a Saturday. Although we do have our phone, they also have their phones on them. They're working away while they're in the bar boozing away. Yeah. Yeah.
It must be interesting for the customers when they phone and get a foreign dial.
Yeah. Well, they're not customers. They were at our level. They're called clients.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. Amazing. So obviously you've had quite a long career in estate agents.
Yes.
Is there something that's kept you going? Because obviously estate agents drop out.
I vowed when I was 24 never to be an estate agent again. It's a pain in the ass. I realised after a few months that being an estate agent when I was 17, you know, was a mug's game. I wanted to be buying and selling because that's where the real money is. But what happened was when we bought Auction House UK in 2008, we inherited Fine & Country as well. It's all part of the same group. So we inherited 2 offices in Norfolk. We've grown that to 5. And then we grew the Auction House business from running the Norfolk office ourselves to having 4 franchises. We grew it to 44 franchises. And then we sold our 50% stake in it in 2020. I think, goodness, time flies by, doesn't it? I wish we hadn't done it really, but my business partner, who I've worked with for 33 years, he wanted to retire. So that's one of the business you can sell. The problem is you can't sell estate agents. So we're stuck with that one.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Moving on from estate agency, there was obviously a progression and you had a desire to get into property development.
Yes.
Can you tell me about sort of that step, that transition, and what your first deal was like? Because obviously that could be quite a daunting time for someone that's only sort of watched it from the periphery.
Yeah, no, it's daunting, but also it's very, very exciting. So in those days, Felixstowe had a lot of converted flats, houses in flats. And when I started my career, it was just the time that you could start getting mortgages on converted flats. Up to then, you couldn't. So a lot of these big houses, seaside type houses with Felixstowe's on the sea, were converted and rented out. So great opportunities for property developers to come in, buy a house in 5 flats, sell them off individually, you know. So a guy called Robin Darcy and John Wiesner, they were property guys, partners, and they'd bought quite a lot of stuff in Felixstowe, and they had at the rump end of a deal, which was Little Fisherman's Cottage, which had both sitting tenants in, so they couldn't get them out. So in those days, you'd have sitting tenants where they're there for life, basically. So they sold me the last two properties, which was a 2-bedroom flat and a cottage at the rear of the property. And I bought them, but at the same time, I agreed to sell the front flat to the tenant for 80% of its value. I bought it at 50% because in those days, anything with a sitting tenant, and I've still got a few left now. That one lady died the other day in the Cotswolds, which is sitting tenant, so I've got to go and sort that one out. But so in those days, you pay 50% of the 50% of the vacant value because you couldn't get the tenants out. So I sold that for 80%. So that means I wasn't in hardly anything on the back one straight away. And then I paid him to go because in those days you could pay people, we can now, of course, pay them to go if you can. Paid him to go and I sold that off as well. So I did that deal and then I moved on and did others. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. And obviously the market's changed quite considerably from when you first started with that deal to now. Yeah. Is there any sort of advice you'd give to sort of aspiring developers that are probably just about to make that transition?
Well, what I would say is that property should be and is a very simple business. It's complicated by a number of, I think, educators that suits them to talk about one particular thing. And in my property seminars I do, I cover every aspect of property developing, from residential to commercial. I've bought and sold over 4,000 properties in 87 different cities and towns across the UK. So there's not much I haven't done. Now, I always say to people, you've got a massive choice of what you want to do in property. There's huge, huge opportunities to do lots of different things. I've got a friend of mine who buys and sells lock-up garages, and how bloody boring is that? But he's got about 3,500 of them or something. He makes good money. So it's not for these property educators to dictate what you do. It's up to you what you do, and how you want to make money. But always remember the selling is in the buying. If you pay the right money for it, you can always sell it on and have a few options. If you pay too much for something, we've all done that, then at times, then you really are stuck. And you're likely, if you think it's going to cost you 20,000 to refurbish it, it's probably going to cost you nearer 30. And if you think it's going to take 6 months, it probably take 9. So always be under promise and over deliver, especially if you've got investors, because you don't want to put yourself under too much pressure. So always tell them you'll get less work than you think you will, and always tell them the build work's more than what it's likely to be if you can make the figures stack up, and it will take you another 3-4 months longer to do and sell, of course. Yeah.
And you, over the last couple of years, did a development in your hometown of Ipswich?
Yes, I'm doing another one now because I'm a mug.
Well, is there something about Ipswich, obviously being your hometown, that you feel you want to do something for the local community?
Well, I think there is a bit of ego about it. I mean, my wife said to me with the wine rack, which was 18 stories high, part finished when we bought it, 150 flats, and she said to me, "Oh, I can see that building for Marks and Spencer's. You don't want to mess this one up, darling, because it'll be very embarrassing for me." I went, "Be more." Lots of people know me in Ipswich. I said, "Be more embarrassing for me, darling, I can tell you, and costly." So luckily, it went okay, and we spent 26 million. Funded by Homes England, which is the government bank. A lot of people don't know that the government have got billions and billions of pounds to lend to developers, and they'll go down as low as, like, if you're building 5 houses, and then so that's all done. And then I got a call at Christmas time from the receiver on another block down there, and he said, "Do you want an early Christmas present, John?" And I went, "Well, I might do. What is it?" He said, "The mill." He said, "You can have it for £1." So I said, "Yeah, it's all right having for £1, but it may be £1 too much, just because it's nothing, and it needs someone's, experience and ability to manage to do it, obviously." So that's a tower of 23 stories high, which is the tallest building in Suffolk, and it's vacant. It's all empty. It's got cladding issues. It will make 80 flats overlooking the river, and then we've got another 215 flats at the rear, that we don't own. They've all been sold off, but it has to be reclad, all reclad. And that the recladdings, we're doing it under the Homes England sort of levelling up. I never knew what that levelling up fund did, Chris, but apparently it lends money to freeholders gives money to the freeholders to replace the cladding. It's one of their jobs. So all 215 residents hopefully will be relieved eventually next year or so when we get going, sorting the problem out. Yeah.
And was that fund quite easy to get hold of, or was there a lot of hoops to jump through?
A lot of hoops. I mean, I would say that when we borrowed the money off for the wine rack, it was the biggest loan they'd made to any private company a few years ago. And I went around the country talking about it with them. And the one question everyone asked me, other developers asked me, was, how long does it take to get the money?
Yeah.
And I had to be a bit careful what I said, but it isn't easy, and they only want to take on challenging projects. So if you can get the money easily elsewhere, they're not going to do it. If it's a challenge, which, anything part finished, and it's all about, of course, delivering more homes. That's what it's all about. Then you have a chance of getting the funding from them. Yeah.
And just on the subject of money, the dust has settled somewhat from last week's budget.
Yes.
How have you reacted to the budget?
Well, first of all, I never react too quickly. And fun enough, I'm doing a video this afternoon about the budget because my experience tells me you need to wait till the dust settles and actually hear a bit more about some of the issues. It's all right, all these people jumping in and doing a video within 5 minutes. It sounds great, but actually, for instance, with the farmers, which I've got basically I really have got what's the word I'm looking for? No sympathy for them whatsoever, really, these farmers. So there's two types of farmers. There's livestock farmers that work very, very hard. Cattle, pigs, sheep, they work very, very hard. And they're probably the smaller farmers, to be fair, with 100 acres or so. But as Rachel Reeves explained last Sunday, this business about paying 20% inheritance tax over $1 million is a bit of a red herring, because they get the allowance everyone gets for the house on the farm, which is about 700,000-800,000. They then get an allowance of £1 million each if they're husband and wife. So they don't start paying tax to £3 million. Well, with all due respect, I've got a family trust I've set up, and I've got a number of investment properties in there, but to try and avoid inheritance tax like everyone else. But we start paying inheritance tax, at 800 grand or whatever, is at 40%. So I haven't got a lot of sympathy for them. If you've got a farm worth 2, 3, 4 million, it's not making any money. Guess what? If you have an investment that's worth that money and you're not sweating your assets, not making any money, we get rid of it, don't we? And do something different. Now, their argument is, well, it's a lifestyle. Well, I've got a lifestyle here. I've got loads of horses sat out here. Well, I subsidise it. It's not making me any money. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, I've got no sympathy for them, really. I said the livestock guys and girls, I've got a bit of sympathy for, but everyone else, arable farms. And, of course, Dyson's put everyone in this situation. People like Dyson, who multi-million. In fact, he went to the same school as me. He gave them 12 million recently. I haven't given them anything. He's been buying up great tranches of Lincolnshire to avoid inheritance tax, and he's bought thousands and thousands of acres, and they're the people that they're trying to punish, to be honest with you, not the small farmers. But I think they should pay the tax like everyone else. At the moment, they're only paying half of it. If I got paid for not building any houses, like they get paid for not producing any food, it'll be all right, wouldn't it? We'd all like that. Yeah.
I suppose they might argue that obviously with the cost of fertilizer and everything going up, that they're struggling to, and because they're so weather reliant, the production not.
Chris, I would totally agree. Of course they will, and they've got a case. I'm sure they've got a bit of a case. However, no one worries about when the building materials went up 30-40%, did they?
No, that's
and I think the bright ones have managed to find other ways of making money out of the farm, and the ones who aren't so bright with 100. I mean, you can't make money out of 100 acres of arable farm. I mean, it's just a joke. Having said that, of course, opportunities. The PD on farm buildings. They've got a nice farmhouse to sell. It's not. I wouldn't feel too sorry for them. I don't anyway.
Yeah, no, it's so true when you talk about, the comparison between build costs. I was talking to a builder last night actually, and he was saying that he costed a development when 2 years ago when the price of bricks were at 70p, now they're £1.20.
Exactly.
He needs 5,000 bricks on this development.
It's a massive difference in cost. So for me, the budget, I think, so I'm doing this video this afternoon, but I would say they're not going to create any growth out of it, unfortunately. Interest rates will come down a bit more, but they won't come down as much as we thought they would. And I think they might even go up a bit next year. Inflation's going to go back up a bit. And I can't see the housing market. I can see it still jogging along in a sluggish way next year. But of course, this is their first bite of the cherry, Chris. Another year's time, they could come back for another bite at it all, because they'll say, oh, well, we didn't know this, didn't know that, and all the rest of it. So I would, I mean, there are one or two things in the budget, like they're saying there's 3 billion available for small builders. They haven't said what it is yet, but it could be a subsidy for first-time buyers. They might guarantee a 95% mortgages. That would be great, but they haven't put any meat on the bone, and that's why you don't really want to jump in too early. And the pension, I think the pensions is the biggest blow to everyone. I mean, that is a serious blow. I mean, what's the point of having money in a pension now, private pension? Because if you spend 100,000 of your pension money, it's only actually costing you 60, because your 40% would be going on tax. So that might actually boost the economy a little bit, because people might be taking the money out and spending it, rather than saying, well, I'm not giving it to the government. Although in 5 years' time, we might have a different government. And obviously, I'm quite close politically to the Tories and everything else, although they messed up big time. And we might well get back in, and we might reverse it. But what you've got to remember, it was the Tories that put 40%, I think, on inheritance tax. So they're not likely to take that off. But if it wasn't them, they certainly didn't take it off when they were in power for 14 years. So I wouldn't expect a lot of these things will come off again once they're on. Yeah.
You touched on it there with you've had a brief sort of political career in terms of, working with the Conservatives.
Yes.
So it's quite interesting to hear you give such a nuanced and balanced view of the budget.
Well, I think you have to be. I mean, this Labour government, not one of them in the cabinet has been in business. Interestingly, I was told by an MP the other day, Conservative MP, that the backbenchers, Labour backbenchers, aren't happy at all. And the reason they're not happy is that a lot of them were promised jobs. The ones with a bit of experience, the ones who were in government before, so they are older.
Yeah.
But they were then blanked. They were promised the job by what's his name? I hate even mentioning his name. The Labour Prime Minister, and Mr. Starmer, and they were then blanked. So there's a lot of very unhappy Labour backbenchers, and the people they've put in have never been in business before, never run a company, and virtually all of them are civil servants, and that's a problem, because you've got no experience apart from the Home Secretary. To be fair to her, they've got no experience before. And it's like you imagine taking over a massive business, which is what it is, with no experienced people. Everyone's just left, and then you've got to pick it all up. Very difficult to do. Will they improve? They need to improve. Who knows? Under a Labour government, there's normally inflation, and it's normally not bad for the property people. That's in the past, that's what's been the case anyway. They throw grants about and all sorts.
Well, you say they haven't been in business, but you're forgetting one key element, that my father was a toolmaker.
Oh yes, of course he was.
So
Yeah, well, yeah. Yes, and working class. So
yeah,
they
yeah,
can't
yeah.
they can't define what a woman is, and they can't define what working class is. So it's all a bit tricky for them, really. I don't know. It's very difficult, isn't it? It's very difficult, and you can. It's very easy when you're the opposition to criticise, but once you're in government, it's very different. And I try to be balanced about it because I think they're going to try and build more houses. They won't manage that. There's no way because they need to build 180,000 social houses a year. Last year, they built 60,000. So, they want to build 300 houses a year. Of course, they want all those houses ideally to be social houses. They're not interested in private ownership particularly. That's why they've upped the stamp duty to 3 to 5% for investors, and why they've reduced the stamp duty from April for first-time buyers. Although they might bring that 5% in, to be fair to them. But I mean, the problem is when you start saying we're going to build 300 houses a year, and by the way, we need to build 500,000 houses a year anyway, unless you change the planning system completely, the one problem they have got is that not many people take any notice really of the local elections, but they're very important. They're important because if you've got a Labour council there who are supporting the government and trying to get things done because the government have told them to, and in May, the Labour councils get voted out and it becomes Tory or becomes Nigel Farage's lot or even Liberals, then when they're told what to do, they don't take much notice of it. So suddenly you've got a problem because you say, well, we want more housing, we want this, and they don't want it in their area or whatever. They'll blag it. And the problem with the Conservatives for the last year and a half of their tenure was that, of course, all the Labour councils knew that they would probably lose, and the Labour lot would be in. So whatever the Tories wanted them to do, they could say, "I'll just leave it because they'll be out of a job soon." And that's really what happened. That's what happened with, of course, all the negotiations with the rail people and the doctors and everybody else. They hung on until it was a Labour government, and then they knew, because the trade unions fund the Labour Party, so they knew they would get away with a pretty good deal.
Absolutely. Well, now we put the world to rights, John.
Yes.
We're going to
my age, I think, probably.
We're going to move on to property elevator.
Good.
Property TV.
Good. I've got a very big announcement that I shouldn't make, but I'm going to make, and my other angels will be giving me some serious stick when they hear about it, and that is that series 7 of the show is now on Amazon
Wow.
Prime. Yeah. So if you type in property, it will come up. At the moment, it's $1.99 to purchase, but we're trying to get that taken off, so it's free for everyone. And then Series 8 will be on there as well when we film Series 8 on the 4th. I've just booked all the hotels because I have to do everything. 4th to the 7th of March. Yeah. So I've booked 6 rooms, although Ranjan doesn't want a room because but he has to pay for dinner this time because he got out of it last time. So the crew are all back. There's the same production crew. We film it in Stoke Newington at the old Dragon's Den studios where they originally filmed. And Scott Marshall's back. The lovely Hayley Andrews, who I think is coming on one of your webinars next year. Which I'm very fond of Hayley. She's sits next to me. And Nicholas Warwork's back. Paul Mahoney is back. Yeah, he's sort of the son I never had, really. And Ranjan, of course, who apparently I was with him the other day doing we do this show called the Property Questions. We've just done I shouldn't tell you this really, but we've just done a Christmas special. So it comes out on Boxing Day and we're not actually there. We've already recorded it, funnily enough. But anyway, and he says he's going to buy yet another new suit for the show, which last year's suit, I said, made him look like a 1970s porn star, which didn't go down very well, to be fair. He was a bit grumpy that day. But yeah, it's great fun. And it's an educational show. I mean, some deals get done, some deals fall through, of course. but the one thing from it, hopefully there's a bit of banter, a bit of fun about it.
Yeah.
But it's educational. People learn a lot when they come on the show and listen to the show. They learn a lot. And we're in our 8th series, sponsored very kindly by Roma. Scott Marshall is the MD of Roma, and they're sponsoring it, and they're great sponsors. Mind you, they made me go and talk at 4 dinners next year for them, which they slipped that in the contract at the last minute. I said, we haven't asked the rest of them to do it, just me. So he went, well, no, you answer your phone more than everyone else. You're a bit more proactive than getting hold of Ranjan or someone like that. So yeah, so I'm doing and I borrow quite a lot of money off them as well, to be fair. So I'm doing four dinners with them. I think they're doing dinners around the country or something. I'm doing 4 of those with them. So yeah, all good fun. Yeah.
So we had Scott on a webinar to do a property market update last month, and it was incredible. He went into some really, really interesting stuff.
He's very, very good at that, I have to say. He's really detailed, but he explains it in a simple way, I think.
Yeah, and he was sort of forecasting well before really Iran came to the front of the frame with what all the stuff that's going on there. He was sort of predicting that quite early on. But the one thing that I noticed about you and Scott, and I've been privileged enough to watch you do sort of, a live interview around the show and see on the show itself. The one thing I liken you and Scott to is me and my brother at my mum's at Sunday dinner, the way that we're bantering each other over the table. Is that sort of a relationship and a chemistry you've developed on the show, or is that sort of, have you guys known each other for a long time?
No, we haven't known each other for a long time. And I always say this, if you can't tell jokes, don't tell jokes, because it's going to be a nightmare. If you can't banter, don't banter, because if you can't banter and you try and banter, you just insult people and they get the hump. If you can banter and do it with a smile on your face and not go too far, and of course everyone's temperament's different. I'm a bit careful with Hayley, how much I banter with Hayley, to be fair, because she can be quite feisty. But I mean, it adds a bit of humour. And I've always said, if I can do business with a smile on your face, and a bit of banter, it just, especially in the difficult situations, it does relax everyone and puts it all in a slightly different context without being silly about it. So, the banter on the show is very genuine. A lot of people say, oh, well, I'm surprised you work with Andrew because you don't like him. I said, well, I don't dislike him all the time, so things like that. So, I mean, Ranjan's the gift that just keeps on giving for me, really, because he always comes up with something. His jokes are terrible, and his dress sense is, debatable. And of course, they all rib me for wearing a tie all the time. But I like to look professional, I like to look professional. And Scott, I'm a little bit careful with Scott because he lends me a lot of money. So in fact, he's just lending me £2 million today, funnily enough. We're just waiting for completion of it any day now, hopefully. Any time now for the completion of it. So I'm a little bit, I do banter with Scott, but I'm a little bit cautious not to go too far with him, because I did do an event the other day that he'd already done. And I said, was he grumpy? Because he was bloody grumpy with me the other day. And they said, yeah, he was a bit grumpy, actually. But, well, he's a banker, they've got a lot of power. They've got a lot, they can be a little bit tricky because they've got a lot of power. Everyone wants to borrow money, and they've got the power to say yes or no. He's the MD. So, you've got to be a bit careful with them.
Well, we'll be very careful where to put this recording after of the webinar.
Oh, don't worry about that. If I've insulted a few people, they won't mind. Don't worry about that.
Not a problem.
If they do mind, what the hell, I'm sure they won't.
Well, I'm just going to turn to the audience for a second. So just a reminder, obviously, if you guys have got any questions that you would like to submit to John, please do put them in the chat. It'd be great to hear from you. If there's anything that John's talked about that you'd like to know more about, then please do submit your questions, and we'll head those off as we get towards the end. Now, John, you've obviously got a seminar coming up in Canary Wharf.
Yes, I have. Thank you for mentioning. I never know whether to put a seminar or a masterclass, because everybody comes up with this bloody masterclass thing, don't they? But anyway, I do 4 a year. I'm busy. I'm doing my own deals. I do a little bit of mentorship as well with people who mainly I've got a development already or are looking to do a development. So my seminar, I do 2 full days. I speak for 7 hours a day. Go and have dinner after the first day in Canary Wharf. I cover everything to do with property, because it's important that even if you know what you want to do, you still need to know about the other options, and bit commercial, residential, pure commercial, because you might have a deal comes up that is a mixed use property in an auction. We talk about auctions a lot because I used to obviously buy at auction all the time, or book on it. So we talk about every aspect of property, and so you get a really comprehensive. A lot of people come on the Monday thinking they want to do this or are doing this, and by the Tuesday they decide they want to do something else, because they've heard me and they've heard the problems. I give them the warts and all. So, well, this is what I've done and this is what happened there, and and so on. So, and obviously finding deals. Everyone, the big question is, can you find deals? And over the years, I've successfully found many deals. So that's really why most people come properties, help them find them deals, is the truth. But we talk. I mean, I could talk all week on it. To be honest with you, I do 2 days, but I could talk all week. But I only do 4 a year. I don't get many. I get between 6 and probably 8 and 14 people. I don't take more than 14 on it. Yeah, so it's good fun, and it's lively, and you're meeting and making some very, very good contacts as well. So thank you for mentioning that. And that's on the next Monday and Tuesday, the 18th and 19th of November. Yeah, right. I quite like it because I get to stay in a hotel for 2 days, and I haven't got to feed the horses at 6 o'clock in the morning those days. So I quite like that. And funny enough, any money I make from those goes into an education trust for my grandchildren. So that sort of keeps me honest and makes me want to do it. And very funnily, when I said to my stepgirl, the girls, oh, well, what I'm going to do, I've decided we'll have an education trust, and any money we make from the seminars and education bits and bobs I do, I'll put towards school fees. They've cancelled the smart hotel I was in straight away, the 5-star hotel I stayed in at Sopwell House, which is lovely. They cancelled that, where you come down for breakfast and they all call you Mr. Howard and everything, and booked me into the cheap one down the bloody road, because it's, well, you don't need to stay in places like that. So anyway, we've compromised. So now we're at the Hilton at Canary Wharf, which is okay, to be fair. So yeah.
Fantastic. And you said that you go into the projects all warts and all. Would you say that's probably the more valuable element, or
without, you know what, you Chris, you're absolutely right. You learn far more when things go wrong than when things go right. When things go right, when the market's increasing rapidly value-wise, you can make a mistake and it's masked. It's the cracks wallpapered over, isn't it? But when the market is pretty static, which it is now, and the build costs go up 20-30%, or you've made a mistake somewhere or the other, and we all do it, by the way. I said to a really successful friend of mine, and he's a serious developer, and I said to him, honestly, how many of your developments are successful? He said straight away, 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. He said the other 2 probably, hopefully, break even, and 1 is a complete mitigating disaster normally for whatever reason. It could be reasons out of our control, but it's a problem. So, all these people who will tell you that, be a millionaire in a year, you're never going to lose money, all that, it's just not true. It takes a lot of hard work, dedication, and mental consistency, I think. And my wife always says I've only got one skill, and that is mentally consistent, same thing every day, bang, 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 to find the deals, do the deals. And yeah, absolutely, because it's very important, how to get out of problems when you get into them, and to anticipate them before they happen. It's not all about property developing, especially. It's not all glamour. There's a bit of glamour in it when it all goes well, but when it doesn't go well, we're at that nasty calf that's on The Apprentice, really. We're not eating in a 5-star hotel that day. So we're all the same. Things, not everything. It's like life. Not everything goes right all the time, and you have to deal with it.
Absolutely. And Dawn is in the chat, and she says that I've managed to catch one of your cards at NPM in October, so I'll be online on the 18th and 19th.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, Dawn. That's lovely. Yeah, I'll do them online as well, on Zoom. And then, Dawn, if you then want to come to the live version, you come for free. So if you've paid, you've paid, you can come more than once. So, you know, if you can come on the live to another one next year live, that's wonderful. Thank you, Dawn. That's great. I look forward to seeing you.
Amazing. We've got a couple of questions coming in from
Yes.
the audience. I'll get onto those in just a second. But John, in terms of the seminar, this ties quite nicely into the week you've just had, where I think you had celebrated the release of your new book.
Yes. Ta-da! So it's taken ages to write this book. So this was inspired by Ranjan partly, because he said to me 3 years ago, must be 3 years ago, well, at a live event, I think it was a landlord show, sort of 300 people watching or whatever. He said, well, of course you don't do any commercial, do you, John? Cheeky bugger. I do a lot of commercial. I always have done. And the balance, I like the balance of the rental income and everything like that. And at the moment, the commercial market is been in recession for 7 years. There's loads of opportunities there. You can't borrow quite as much money, and it is a bit more, it's simpler in some ways and more complicated in other ways. But so he sort of inspired me to write it, really. It's my 5th book. At the moment, it's only available on my website, johnhowardproperty.com, because, well, we will be on Amazon shortly, but you've got to go through a load of rigmarole for that. And also, they take 65%, and my publisher takes another bloody 15%. So it's like a calling card on Amazon, whereas actually, if you buy it from my website, I might be able to stay in a nice hotel from time to time. But yeah, I wrote it about a year and a half ago, and then what happened was we're just really busy, and it had 700 mistakes in it according to the proofreader. So yeah, 700 mistakes. That took a lot of sorting out. Anyway, it's all been sorted out. It's all printed now, and it's available. So yeah, thank you very much for mentioning that as well.
700 mistakes. How many pages is the book?
The book is quite thick, actually, for one of my books. 174 pages.
There you go. Great stuff. Well, we've had a question come in from Thomas.
Yes.
In your view, what are the best current opportunities for property investment in the UK? Are there specific types of properties or regions you think are promising for 2025?
That's a massive question, Thomas. Congratulations. That's the best question of the day, isn't it? Goodness me. Well, the property market is a micro market. It's a micro market. Paul Mahoney is on the show, has always says that, and he's absolutely right. So London, apart from a few areas, have not really gone up since 2016, since Brexit, which is amazing because London has always been golden. And the top end in London, which, you know, doesn't affect anybody really, we're at 5-10 million quid plus, they've gone down, and they're going down rapidly at the moment. So London is tricky. I think there's certain areas of the country that have done very well over the last few years, especially after COVID. I've got 3 developments in Scotland I'm doing at the moment. That's quite an interesting area. So it just depends what you want to do and where you want to do it. And what I always do, if I do any mentorship with people, I say, right, first of all, get your finance sorted out. You know, how much money you've got to spend. Are you ready to go on it? Because unless you've got the money and you're organised, or you've got your investors or whatever, you're going to struggle because you find a property you can't buy anyway. Then we decide what we want to do with that money. And it really is up to, I'm very passionate about the fact it's up to whoever, it's their money, not mine, and where they want to spend it. What I would say is that the buy-to-let market is just really had it, because interest rates aren't going to come, they've come down a bit, they'll come down a bit more, but they're not going to come down to the levels where it made a lot of sense for a lot of people. And we're not getting the capital growth. So I've got a large portfolio across the UK. Unless I get capital growth, it's nearly a waste of bloody time, to be honest with you. By the time I paid my mortgages, and by the time I've repaired everything, or it's come vacant and I've refurbished it, there's not a lot of fat in it. I work on capital appreciation more than anything else. And in some areas that's been really good. In other areas it's been very, very dull. Don't get suckered into the northeast so much, where, you know, I got offered 10 houses the other day at 50,000 each. Wow, how can I go wrong? Well, I said, what are the rents? I said, 350 quid each. I said, well, what should they be? Thinking they should be 700-800 quid. And he went, 400. So, you know, there's no, where do you go with that? No real capital growth. Some of these areas are rental areas only, and that's the other thing you've got to remember. And there isn't housing shortage in all these areas. So there is a massive shortage of housing in the south, of course. Up north, not so much. In the Midlands, not so much. So you need to do your research, and you need to know, you need to decide what you want to do, and then you can go and do it. But buy to let is difficult. If you can get the council to take it over 5 years, fixed, that's not a bad thing. Or you can rent it to a service accommodation company, or you can rent it to supported living. That's a bit more sexy, with a single block, single house. So there are ways of sweating the assets, which is what we're all trying to do. Holiday lets. I think holiday lets are going to be hammered a bit by the government. I think they're going to bring out licenses for those. They don't want people. What they don't want is people turning their houses into a commercial. So it's a guest house, really, isn't it? They want them for people to live in, and they want to, increase the housing stock, not decrease it. So that's a bit of a challenge, I think. But Thomas, it's really up to you to decide what you want to do, and then I can help you if you need any help.
Well, there you go. We've just put the John, your website into the chat. So if people want to find out a little bit more about the seminar or your book, they can click on the website and find out more information on there.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
John, obviously you're in UK Homes Network now, so you're a fully fledged member in there.
I've just got to get my act together and work out how it all works. I'm sure it's very simple. I won't need my stepdaughter to help me probably, so I hope not, because she's off to Tenerife for 5 days. So anyway, but I should be all right. I should be able to do it on my own, shouldn't I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't be that difficult. I can get on a Zoom call now and everything, so I should be all right.
There you go. Brilliant. So yeah, obviously, guys, if you want to speak to John or follow up on anything that he said during the chat, please do message John via UK Homes Network. But how can everyone else find you? Well,
they can find me very easily. I do my YouTube channel. Ranjan's got 75,000 people. I've got 3,500. The difference is I've got more engagement than his pro rata. So that's my saving grace. So I don't have a cameraman following me around all day filming. So, and they say you've got to film something every day. And oh my God, it's just too much. But what I do have, I've got a very solid following from people who are serious about property, and everything I put on, all the content I put on there, I think hopefully gives good advice and is sensible. And I get a very high engagement level, which, is what it's about for me, really. And I enjoy doing it. I do Twitter as well, and I do Instagram. I got into a bit of trouble on, what's the other one? TikTok or something. What's it called?
TikTok, that's the one.
TikTok, that's the one where I was asked by Joe Politics, going into the landlord show last year actually, what do I think people should do if they're struggling paying their mortgages? And I said, along with a lot of other ideas, by the way, they should buy less Costa coffee and go and take less holidays, less Costa coffee, and less subscription. Of course, you need a subscription now for Amazon because we're on Amazon. But anyway, and that went apparently went viral. Now my stepdaughter, Ruby rang me up and said, "What did you say yesterday?" I said, "Hold on." I said, "Yesterday." She said, "Well, Joe Politics know what you said because you are, what's it called? Trending or something. Trending." Yeah. I went, "Really? What's the big deal with that then?" "Well, you've had 500,000 hits, 500,000 people, and they're not saying very nice things about you." I said, "Well, that's nothing new. I won't worry about that." Anyway, when it got to 3.3 million and there was 14,000 comments, I thought, what's the best comment? God, there must be a good comment, mustn't there? Because you've got 14,000. They can't all be derogatory. And one of them was, the best one she could find, I never looked at it, but the best one Ruby could find was, "Nice suit, John, but you're still a Tory bastard." So there you go. So hey.
Well, there was balance in that.
Well, there's balance. It was a balanced comment, I thought. But so yeah, I don't really read any of that anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. But it just shows you. And out of that, I made absolutely there's no money in it. It's all fluff. And in fact, I went into a Starbucks and I went into a Costa in Cambridge, looking at a deal near Cambridge. And I went a few days later. I went into the Costa and I said, "Oh, can I, latte, please?" He said, "You're in the wrong coffee shop, aren't you?" So he said, "I don't think we want you in here." No, just joking. So, but yeah, so it's a bit of fun, isn't it? Bit of fun.
Great stuff. Well, John, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. We're getting a bit of approval from the dog there in
Yes,
the
yeah,
background.
the dog's approving as well, which is always good. No, it's been an absolute pleasure, Chris. And if I can help anybody who's on the webinar, you know, if they want to, if they're thinking of coming on the seminar, I'm not sure, happy to do a 15-minute Zoom with them to make sure it's for them. Because if it's not for them, it's not worth them coming on it anyway, but I'm sure it will be. But I'm happy to do that. And if I can help anybody in any way, you can all contact me on LinkedIn or on my website, Chris, and I shall look forward to getting stuck in
Great stuff.
to your network. Super.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today.
It's been an absolute honor to have you on. Guys, if you want the recording, it will be available in UK Homes Network by Monday. So you can watch the recording back and share it with your friends and colleagues. We'll also put it out on YouTube with some clips next week. So if you want to keep up to date with any other webinars we've got, please do join UK Homes Network. We've got about 3 other webinars before the end of the year. So it'd be great to have you on those. A massive thank you to John for joining us, and a massive thank you to you guys for being in the audience and getting your questions over to John. Look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.